All right, as we had noted before, Genesis 17 down through 21, it's not talking about any judges, but it is a really shocking account, two different accounts really, but they're shocking of the degradation of Israel in the early days of their dwelling in the land of Canaan. After that generation of Joshua had passed away, and it talked about there arose a generation that did not know God. We're reading about that generation and the things that begin to unfold, and we'll see that sort of timeline there in Genesis chapter 20, or Judges chapter 20. But you have in 17 and 18 that we looked at religious corruption with the idolatry first of Micah and then of the Danites. We see where there was the Levite who got caught up in that, appointed as a priest to offer up this worship to Jehovah God, the true God, but through these idols that were made. And then in 19 to 21, we're dealing with moral corruption here, a perversion of God's design on sexual relationships. And we see that in a couple of different ways in these few chapters here. And we see a mistreatment of their fellow man, a mistreatment of women, and a certain view of women in this. And quite frankly, there's barbarity in here. There's barbarity in action in more than one way. And both of these accounts have the Israelites turning against themselves. The Danites in threatening Micah and his family and things like that. And then, of course, in this, we have the tribes turning against the tribe of Benjamin, and the men of Benjamin and the men of Gibeah turning against the Levite and others. But we see in this sin, as sin arises, they begin to abuse each other and to threaten each other, to turn against one another. And again, in both accounts, you have Levites that are deeply involved in this. And these things are highlighted for us here. It's almost like a prequel. Like we've seen what's happened during this time with the various judges, and now this is helping us to see here's what led to all of that taking place. Here's what happened to the breakdown of the society and their culture and their religious beliefs and practices, and here's what led into that time of oppression and the judges having to be raised up. So let's begin here, Judges 19. Let's read verses 1 through 10. Who will get that for us? Zach.
In those days, when there was no king in Israel, a certain Levite was sojourning in the remote parts of the hill country of Ephraim, who took to himself a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah. And his concubine was unfaithful to him, and she went away from him to her father's house at Bethlehem in Judah, and was there some 4 months. Then her husband arose and went after her to speak kindly to her and bring her back. He had with him his servant and a couple of donkeys, and she brought him into her father's house. And when the girl's father saw him, he came with joy to meet him. And his father-in-law, the girl's father, made him stay, and he remained with him 3 days. So they ate and drank and spent the night there. And on the 4th day they arose early in the morning, and he prepared to go. But the girl's father said to his son-in-law, "Strengthen your heart with a morsel of bread, and after that you may go." So the two of them sat and ate and drank together. And the girl's father said to the man, "Be pleased to spend the night, and let your heart be merry." And when the man rose up to go, his father-in-law pressed him till he spent the night there again. And on the 5th day he arose early in the morning to depart. And the girl's father said, "Strengthen your heart and wait until the day declines." So they ate, both of them. And when the man and his concubine and his servant rose up to depart, his father-in-law, the girl's father, said to him, "Behold, now the day was waned toward evening, has waned toward evening. Please spend the night. Behold, the day draws to its close. Lodge here, and let your heart be merry, and tomorrow you shall arise early in the morning for your journey, and go home." But the man would not spend the night. He rose up and departed, and arrived opposite Jebus, that is, Jerusalem. He had with him a couple of saddled donkeys, and his concubine was with him.
All right. So first of all, it states at the beginning, it came to pass, there was no king of Israel during those days. That is bookended in chapter 21, verse 25, about there not being any king in Israel during those days. And it's highlighting here, here's a problem that exists in the land. And we'll come back to that idea and issues with that at the end of the study. But here you have this Levite. It says he's from the remote mountains of Ephraim. So he's up there dwelling there, and he's taking this concubine. And question number one, I had asked, what sin did the Levite's concubine commit, and what is indicated about his character to seek her out? Tom? Okay, unfaithful to him. And what was the penalty under the law for that?
If it was adultery, she was to be stoned.
Right, exactly right. So there seems to be an indication here that law is not being enforced. It's not even being enforced by a Levite here. But him willing to go and get her and fetch her and take her back, what does that say about him? Would that be difficult for a man to do? He's showing a measure of compassion here. So when we get down into chapter 19, chapter 20, and really 19, where we read about what he does later, it's not as though this man is a completely cold, callous man who is just a monster with this woman. That's not who he is. There's circumstances, and he has a mix of favorable and unfavorable attributes about him. Zach.
Don't mean to put you on the spot too much.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why the Septuagint translates unfaithful to as became angry with?
I do not know why the Septuagint.
I'm looking
Yes.
at the Septuagint. It's just
Yes.
a footnote that I take at its face value, but there's a different phrase in the Greek translation of the Old Testament that
Correct.
most, if not all, of the Hebrew manuscripts of the Old Testament are intact. Then it changes what she did, perhaps. Not that it affects what we take from it and the overall sexual promiscuity throughout many of the chapters of this book. I just didn't know, as a technical phrase, you're like, yeah, I looked at it, it's garbage, or there's some merit to it and it changes this or that or whatever.
Here's what I did. I looked at that, I saw that, and pretty well every translation in this room has, so I kind of go with that. If there were variations in the modern translations that scholars had, researched, and they said, no, you know what, it really needs to be this, then I might take a deeper look, but I'm kind of leaning on that side. Carrie, and then Mike.
I might be reading it a little bit, but the term concubine versus the term wife, why would they use the term concubine instead of wife? I mean, it to me sounds less than a wife, but they still refer to it as a
And she was this, what, I don't know a better way to describe a secondary wife. She didn't have all the legal rights within the family and within society being a concubine. So this is his second or third or fourth wife. We don't know for sure. But she has a different legal standing compared to the first wife. Mike?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It does have some notes about that. It does say, they translate it as found him repugnant, but they do side note that is also unfaithful. They are homonyms where you kind of look at, and so whichever one you find in the English is better translated.
Yeah, referring to her, right? Yeah. Ron, did you have something to add?
I was going to say what you did as well, Steve, when I was studying this. There are some translations that refer to this as abuse, but most of the translations that we currently use refer to it as adultery or sexual immorality.
Right, yeah. It's pointing toward that. And just for me personally, looking at the overall context of what the story's talking about from start to finish, all the way down to the kidnapping of the virgins, it's dealing with these sexual relationships and how the family and marriage and everything has just collapsed really in this society, and all the issues and problems it comes up with as a result of that.
And as you mentioned, the degradation that is going on within Israel, and as we studied previously with the Levitical priests, as well as just people from the tribe of Levi, as we have studied, accepting things that they shouldn't have as far as positions of authority individually. So there's been a major decay in living according to the law.
Right, exactly right. You see how deep this has penetrated in society when the Levites, as well as others, are caught up in all of this. Exactly right. So when you're looking at this and you see what's happening here, he goes to the father-in-law's house to bring back his concubine, to take her back. He loves her. He cares about her. He wants a relationship with her. So he goes to fetch her. And the father-in-law, how does he deal with it when they're there at the house? What's his disposition toward the Levite, Ron?
Well, the father-in-law was pleased, glad to meet him. So if there had not been any previous association with them, that might be the case. Or he did, and he was glad to be with him again. But he's enticing him to stay and to be with them, and he's providing hospitality to them.
Right. Tom, do you have something?
Yeah. So walk on, and then sit down, eat, drink, stay a while.
Yeah. We're going to go with his daughter committed adultery. He knows she's at his house for a reason. And I'm going to say he knows it's because she committed adultery. I can't go back to my husband. Why can't you go back to your husband? Well, because of this. So you think about it, he's got a concern for his daughter and her well-being and what's her future going to look like. And her husband comes in a favorable way. Whew, I'm glad. I'm so glad he's here, that he's going to receive her back. That had to be a relief to him. And that's why he's glad that he shows up. That his daughter's going to be able to go back into someone's care and protection and love and all of that. And so, but while they're there, he wants more time with his daughter. And maybe it is to see how's this going to play out between the Levite and his daughter. How's he going to be taking care of her? And I don't know. Has anybody ever gone to see your family, you and your spouse, and your family, your parents just want you to stay and stay longer and stay longer? We can appreciate the father-in-law here and how he is and the dynamic of the relationship, the situation. So the Levite, finally, verse 10, what is he determined to do? All right, I'm drawing the line here. We're leaving. We're gone. All right, let's read verses 11. It's a little bit longer again, 11 through 21. Who will grab that for us? Elijah.
They were near Jebus, and the day was far spent. The servant said to his master, "Come, please, let us turn aside into the city and share sides and lodging." But his master said to him, "We will not turn aside here to the city of foreigners, who are not the children of Israel. We will go on to Gibeon." So he said to the servant, "Come, let us go on here to one of these places and spend the night in Gibeon or in Ramah." And they passed by and went their way. And the sun went down over the near Gibeon, which belongs to Benjamin. They turned aside there to go in to lodge at Gibeon. And when he went in, he sat down in the open square of the city, for no one would take him into his house and spend the night. Just then an old man came in from his work in the field at evening, who also was from the mountains of Ephraim. He was staying in Gibeon, where it was the place for Benjamites. And when he raised his eyes, he saw the traveler in the open square of the city. And the old man said, "Where are you going? Where do you come from?" So he said to him, "We are passing
So question number 2, I had asked, what city the Levite refused to stop at and where he ended up going, and what's odd about this?
I'm going to stay in that city of the Gentiles, the ones who are foreigners to God. I'm not going to do that. I want to go to a place where I can reasonably think that there's safety and that people will take care of me because I'm there forever.
Right. And remember, they really weren't supposed to go into a Gentile's house. There's uncleanness in there. Who knows what all's been going on, what's happening in there. So there's uncleanness there. And I'm not going to go, as Mike was saying, I'm not going to go into those Gentiles' homes. I'm not going to seek refuge and rest there. So he decides to go on. And from what I read, from Jerusalem on to Gibeah, about another 2.5 hours or so. So it's not like it's a day's journey or something. So he left late in the day. There's this decision, well, we're near Jebus. We're here. We could go in, but let's keep traveling. Let's go a little while longer. It's cutting the day really late. It's going to be long, but let's go there. And so they end up in Gibeah that belonged to Benjamin. And what was it he was wanting there? Verse 15 in particular.
Someone to take give the servant and his concubine into the house of his master to keep body.
Okay.
He just wanted the roof over his head. He had everything else. He just needed the roof.
This is, I think, really foreign to us. I have never traveled thinking, well, I'm going to just find a town somewhere along the way and just go and see if somebody will let me stay the night at their house. I've never done that. But we have to understand, it's not like there's an inn in every village and town along the way here. You know, and it's not like you could get, even if you knew there's an inn in the next town, well, that might be 10 miles away, and I'm going to get there at, 2 or 3 in the morning walking there and whatnot. So they depended upon, and reasonably so, within Israel, being a city that belonged to Israelites, somebody there of my brethren is going to open up their home. They're going to say, hey, we see you're traveling. Come stay the night at our place. You can get some rest, some shelter here. Everything will be okay. And that's what he was hoping for, Mike.
A couple of things. First of all, because he was a Levite, he probably had that expectation. Someone will take him. But also, just the fact that he had to make that decision to pass through the Jebusites, or the Gentiles, because they were supposed to be really driven out people. So you see this influence that is now starting to happen, starting to spread like cancer throughout all of it.
It affects practical daily living. Yes. And just being able to travel through the land and be comfortable traveling through that land. So he decides he's going to go on there to Gibeah. He's there in Gibeah. He is looking for a place to stay. Old man comes out of the field. The old man, it says, verse 16, is from the mountains of Ephraim also. So there's a connection between them in being from the same region, relative region. So he tells him, hey, you come in and stay with me. And the Levite tells him, I've got all the provisions. We just need an actual place. But what does the old man insist? Yeah, verse 20. I have everything you need. Why would he do that? Ron?
He instructs him, do not stay in the open square. So to me, he has an understanding of the things that are subsequent to this.
Yes. This man has a measure of a moral compass on him, and he realizes the nature of the men of that city. And he says, come in, and he's extending this hospitality, and they're and even still in the Middle East today, Hank has commented on this, that you show somebody hospitality, they come in your house, they're under your protection, and it's your duty, your responsibility to look after them, to provide for them. Mike?
I just wondered if the other people who were there saw him there and would like to help, but they know that there's going to be trouble if they can take him.
Right, because it said no one would take him. So he obviously had some conversations and nobody would take him in, maybe because they're anticipating that's going to make me and my house a target. But the thing is, the people, the culture is known there. It wasn't like this is the first time something ever came out that, hey, we got a problem with the men of the city here. Any other thoughts there? Paul?
Was it because he was a Levite?
It probably didn't hurt that he was a Levite and this old man welcoming him into his home. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's read now verses 22 to 30. Again, another longer reading, but we've got quite a bit to cover here. Go ahead, Ron.
As they were enjoying themselves, suddenly certain men of the city, perverted men, surrounded the house and beat on the door. They spoke to the master of the house, the old man, saying, "Bring out the man who came to your house, that we may know him carnally." But the man, the master of the house, went out to them and said to them, "No, my brethren, I beg you, do not act so wickedly. Seeing this man has come into my house, do not commit this outrage. Look, here is my virgin daughter and the man's concubine. Let me bring them out now. Humble them and do with them as you please. But to this man, do not do such a vile thing." But the men would not heed him. So the man took his concubine and brought her out to them. And they knew her and abused her all night until morning. And when the day began to break, they let her go. Then the woman came as the day was dawning and fell down at the door of the man's house where her master was, till it was light. When her master arose in the morning and opened the doors of the house and went out to go his way, there was his concubine, fallen at the door of the house with her hands on the threshold. As he said to her, "Get up and let us be going," there was no answer. So the man lifted her onto the donkey, and the man got up and went to his place. When he entered his house, he took a knife, laid hold of the concubine, and divided her into 12 pieces, limb by limb, and sent her throughout all the territory of Israel. And so it was that all who saw it said, "No such deed has been done or seen from the day that the children of Israel came up from the land of Egypt until this day. Consider it, confer, and speak up."
All right. Some of the resources that I've used going through this completely skip chapter 19 to 21. And this is why. At least that's my putting two and two together. They don't want to deal with this. And we're talking about things that were written in the 1800s, that it was hard for them. It's hard for us to wrap our mind around what is going on here. It's just ugly just to even read through this and to see the behavior of men, the behavior of a husband, the behavior of a father, just extremely corrupted here. In verse 22 then says, as they were enjoying themselves, and that just really has a reference. They're there together, they're having a meal together, they're enjoying each other's company. And it says that these certain perverted men of the city, the sons of Belial, is, I think, the literal idea there. And that just simply means worthless men. And it's talking about their moral value. They're just worthless, corrupted, perverted. And they come and they want the visitor brought out to them, the Levite, that they could know him. In other words, commit homosexual acts with him. Well, question number 3, I had asked, how did the men of Gibeah view their fellow man and Israelite? And how did the old man and Levite view women? And what does this tell us about the culture at the time? So how are they looking at their fellow Israelites in different ones?
Absolutely no respect for God. And this is the Levite. No respect for God's law whatsoever. I know it says that they were worthless. It is obvious that they are far more than worthless in our terms. I mean, they are completely depraved, and it even says that they surrounded the house. So, I mean, it's not like there was only 1 or 2 of them. They completely surrounded the house. And you can see the urgency that even the father has of, I have to do something. And I mean, so obviously there's a model. It's not a 1 or 2. And, they just have absolutely zero regard for God's law, for his people, who their own brethren. I cannot think of anyone who's going to pray.
Right. Any other thoughts? Philip, do you have something? They're seeing each other and seeing others as objects to be used for their own selfish, depraved desires. I mean, the men see the Levite as that, hey, here's someone that's new in town, and this is what we want to do. And then the father, looking at his daughter, under that pressure, he says, well, you can take my daughter and and take this concubine. Then the Levite takes his concubine out to him. They're just seeing each other really as things to be used, as objects, not those who have been made in the image of God to be respected and treated with consideration and kindness and compassion. That's off the table here. It just shows how deep, as Mike was saying, how deep that twisted, perverted mind can go when you depart from God's law. Any other thoughts on that?
The fact that it didn't let him have the Levite. He evidently knew he was God's anointed man for a religious factor here.
It could be in part Levite. I see this more as he sees homosexual act like this homosexual gang rape is what it is he sees that's across a line, that he drew a line on that, but he was willing to send his daughter out to them so that this particular depraved act did not take place. And being one who was a host, it was his responsibility to protect that man who was in his home. So he's willing to give up his daughter, Carrie, then Mike, then Philip, then Elijah. Carrie.
It's just a little hard to reconcile the actions, especially of the Levite and the man that was hosting him, of turning the concubine out with the same, compassion that we see earlier, with him going and bringing her back to his family. Just a little.
So what does this tell you about his character? He's a bit of a coward, right? He cares about her, but he's a coward. Because let me ask you this before we get to Mike and Philip and Elijah. What should he have done? And maybe one of y'all are going to say this. Me personally, I would like to think, never been in this situation, I'd like to think I'd fight to the death. You are not taking my wife or my daughter or me. This is a life or death thing. Not going to let it happen. but he facilitated it in taking her out there. So, Mike.
We were just talking about, so we have this example and also Sodom and Gomorrah. And, very similar storylines. And the Sodom and Gomorrah, there's destruction almost immediately. Here, by the time we get to the end of this time period, there's hardly any victimized left. So, God's wrath does come upon this type of thing.
Right. Philip.
I was just going to mirror what Mike said about how this is very similar to what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah, and it just kind of shows the degradation of morality rather quickly in Israel, especially in Benjamin, that they would go so far as to, and they should know this was part of Abraham's, Sodom and Gomorrah was part of Abraham's story. God came and told Abraham what he was going to do. So these men should know exactly what happened. So the fact that they are that depraved anyway just kind of shows where their moral compass is.
Exactly. They pushed aside all those stories, lessons, history, and God's wrath upon them. Elijah.
Somewhat echoing what you said, I think the most disturbing part about this is that up until this point, these two men were normal and relatively compassionate and kind. And then these circumstances arise, and they default to this. It shows how low the moral standard really was.
Right. Yeah. When there's no pressure there on the surface, things, he's going to get his concubine back. Here's a guy hosting. Come in. Let's enjoy. Then the pressure comes, and that base nature comes out in both of them. Mike.
Let's be honest, a lot of times we give away our integrity for a lot less of a situation.
Right. The pressure's there. Oh, I don't want to deal with this. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good. So the men of Gibeah, they take the concubine, they abuse her till the morning, says they let her go. Verse 26 is one of the saddest things, 26 to 28 for me. She makes her way back and falls down at the door. So that tells you the abuse she had received, how she has physically, no doubt emotionally, she is completely broken, but physically as well there. And when he sees her there, this right here makes me want to strangle the Levite, honestly. Just get up, let us be going. That sounds so cold to me. He knows, he has an idea of what's happened to her all night. He's like, get up, let's go. Whew. What a terrible way to address her, to treat her at this point. So, question 4, how did the Levite show his outrage at what had happened? What's that, Anita? Yeah, took his knife and cut her up and sent her throughout all of Israel. Why is he doing this? I mean, maybe it's obvious because of what follows, but
I believe Stephen's doing this to shock them into understanding the level of degradation that has occurred here within the nation of Israel. As we know previously with Sodom and Gomorrah, God referred to this as a grievous sin, and an abomination has occurred. And he's doing this, I believe, in an attempt to wake them up to the reality of where they are.
Exactly right. Yes, that's the idea.
A couple of things. First of all, I agree with your statement about how he felt her, but also it says, as the day began to dawn, she came there. He had come out till midday. And it was just unfathomable to me that he just leaves her out there and she's laying there at the doorway. But be that as it may,
Yes, that is another aspect of this. When he recounts everything, he doesn't say, I was a complete coward and I turned her over and all of this. He just says, here, look what's happening.
He makes it out almost as if he just snatched her off.
Right, exactly. But here, Logan.
Kind of to piggyback off what's already been said, it's already been mentioned that she made it to the door and that she stayed there until morning. The way this is written in that he arose, and the fact that she made it to the threshold of the door but not past, kind of indicates to me that once they tossed her outside, they locked the door, they went to sleep. And then there was no concern, there was no checking, there was just complete disregard for what was happening. And then beyond that, in the morning, there's no concern in trying to get her up, like you mentioned. It's just time to go. There's no follow-up. He's right there. He didn't see anybody else. And then to make it worse, to me, when he gets back to his to me, that's even more disgraceful to her. There's no respect. There's no care. There's no burial. It's just she's now continuing to be an object, now not to get him out of a predicament, but just to stir up more anger at the results of the event, rather than actually caring for how she should be treated at the time.
Right. Hank.
You never get to say you love her. You see her as property, as a lot of, in that time, men saw their concubines as property. They had the first wife that they loved most of the time. And then they had the concubines that they would get as they got wealthy. To do make no labor. Let's just be honest, and other things that they get with. So we don't often think of that, but that's just the way society was back then, and that's why it's so easy.
Right. Yeah. It shocks our sensibility. Even as depraved as our culture is, this shocks our sensibilities of right and wrong and how people are to be treated. Part of what this is showing all through here is here are consequences of sin and what happens with people, their behavior when these types of things unfold. It goes from bad to worse with these things. Hank?
Well, if you remember, when I grew up in the 70s, if you seen two guys or two gals, that was like, whoa. If you seen a mixed race couple, it was unheard of back then. And as you see things, you get numb to it. We're getting numb to it. It's not odd to see two women in the grocery store or two men in the grocery store together anymore as a couple. It's like, used to shock us and we were appalled by it, but it hardens our hearts seeing it, and we should help.
Yeah, we should still be attuned to God's will in all things and not allow those things that are perverted away from God's will. Exactly right. So let's read verses 1 through 3, chapter 20, verses 1 through 3. Who's got that? Elijah, go.
So all the children of Israel came out from Dan to Beersheba, as well as from the land of Gilead, and the congregation gathered together as one band before the Lord at Mizpah. And the leaders of all the people, all the tribes of Israel, presented themselves in the assembly of the people of God, 400,000 foot soldiers who drew the sword. Now the children of Benjamin heard what the children of Israel had gone up to Mizpah. Then the children of Israel said, tell us, how did this wicked deed happen?
All right. So Israel's determined to punish the evildoers, and I ask question 5, what indicates a general anger over the sin committed? What shows you that the people are fired up now? Paul?
Well, it's the whole nation that's fired up.
Okay.
And I think it was the setting up of the mighty that did it, not the prevailing act.
Well, we get down to the body parts got their attention, but they also see what happened down there as a problem because they go and attack them. But notice it says in verse 1, from Dan to Beersheba, what's that saying? North to south. For us to be like New York to LA. The whole country, the whole place. And then it also says, as well as from the land of Gilead. What is that? Yeah, so the west side of the Jordan and the Israelites, and the east side of the Jordan and the Israelites who were settled over there, those 2.5 tribes that settled east of the Jordan. So basically he's saying, the whole nation, everybody, all the tribes, they got together, and it was 400,000 foot soldiers who drew the sword. Now remember, there was a little over 600,000 in that last census who drew the sword. And the idea is probably here that those who could be spared, those who weren't still in the cities and protecting their people, because remember, when you get down later in this chapter, it talks about this is the days of Phinehas. So this is very early in the days of Judges when they still have this mandate of going in and killing the Canaanites. They just finished a war not too long before this to take out the major stronghold. So there's still danger in the land. So it's probably what it is the 200,000 men are still in their various areas protecting their people, where the 400,000 who could be spared to go and take care of this problem, they're the ones that have gathered in order to address the issue. So the Levite recounts his sanitized version, his personal viewpoint version of it. He gets the people fired up. In verses 7 through 11, the Israelites respond to this, and they say, particularly verse 8, we're not going to go back to our tent. We'll not turn back to our house. But what we're going to do is we're going to go up to Gibeah. We'll go up against them by lot. And that is the idea. The various tribes would go and fight against them, one at a time there. But we're going to go up against them, and we're going to fight them, and we're going to set these things right. And so they're united in verse 11 as one man against these tribes, or against Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin. Let's read 12 to 17 and wrap up this section here. 12 to 17. Who's got that for us? Go ahead, Philip.
Then the tribes of Israel sent men through all the tribes of Benjamin, saying, what is this wickedness that has occurred among you? Now therefore deliver up the men, the perverted men who are in Gibeah, that we may put them to death and remove the evil from Israel. But the children of Benjamin would not listen to the voice of their brethren, the children of Israel. Instead, the children of Benjamin gathered together from the cities to Gibeah to go to battle against the children of Israel. And from their cities at that time, the children of Benjamin numbered 26,000 men who drew the sword, besides the inhabitants of Gibeah, who numbered 700 select men. Among all this people were 700 select men who were left-handed. Everyone could sling a stone at a hair's breadth and not miss. Now besides Benjamin, the men of Israel numbered 400,000 men who drew the sword. All of these were men of war. Then the children of Israel arose and went up to the house of God.
Let's pause right there, please. Yeah, so question number 6, I asked, how did Benjamin react when the people approached them and said, bring the perverted men out, we want to dispatch them? Why would they do that?
Well, it seems to me that this is an indication of how independent tribes have become from one another. Now, the rest of them united against Benjamin, but look what it took for that to happen. And so Benjamin defended itself independently, as though it had lost the concept of these were brethren. And if I could just back up for a second on this, he didn't go to the city of the Gentiles. He went to where he thought they would be safe and accepted. And so Israel now is seeing what's going on among the Israelites. They know if that had happened in another city, there would have maybe been one or two tribes that would have gone over there and taken care of that. It wouldn't have been all of Israel because they handled it differently when they were so independent. But when they saw it happening in their own, among Israel, they had to deal with it. I mean, we see things happening in the world, but if you see it happening in the church, you have to deal with it because it's the people of God.
Right. So you think about this, couple things. He probably would have been better off going to Jebus. Probably would have been better off. But secondly, when Benjamin will not turn over the guilty, that's just like when a family, where the family is Christians, and they defend the person that is blatantly, knowingly in sin. And we can see, we look at this and we're like, what is wrong with those people? Why would they defend that? Why would they protect them? They shouldn't be doing that. And so when things like this happen within our families or within a congregation, sometimes people circle up the wagon, so to speak, and protect somebody that's in sin because they're one of us. Well, we can't deal with things like that. Mike?
I think there's some denial going on that, this isn't really a bad problem. This really didn't happen. There's got to be some of that kind of going on. And just pull down the pride and get rid of the sin that was amongst them.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bit of pride there. They says they had 26,700 warriors on their side. 700 who are kind of the elite. They're very good with a sling and a stone and hit a hair's breadth with the sling and the stone and whatnot. I mean, that was an extremely deadly weapon at the time, but they are determined. They think we can withstand an attack and we're going to fight in this. Well, when we get down to the end of this, and Lord willing, we'll continue on with the study, but when you go through this, you remember that they are whittled down to 600 that are left. From 26,700 to 600. So in the first couple battles that take place, there's some men who die, but it's not mentioned. In that last battle, 25,000 of them die. And so there's some who die along the way. That last battle, it whittles them down to 600. When you fast forward to King Saul, and King Saul is approached by Samuel to be anointed as king, he says, I'm from the least of the tribes of Israel. This is why. Because they're almost completely annihilated in this war that takes place here. So, Lord willing, let's pick up in 20 verse 18. We'll go quickly through the rest of Judges and roll into Ruth, which is in the time of the Judges.